Hello, loves. Here we are at part 3 of this project, and this is where we'll end up. Where we ended last time was I had selected most of the trims to go along the edges of the pages, and so in this video I'll show you how I sewed them on and how I assembled the journal. There's a couple other things I'll want to do after this, but this is essentially a finished book by the time we get to the end of this. So let's get started. I will do my best to keep this on screen. What I've done is I've taken all of the trims that I picked out and paper clipped them on so that I know what they go to. And I'm going to go ahead and open this to the center and put it face down. Okay, except that one pinned it and folded. Okay, so this way they stay in some semblance of order. We'll hope this works. I'm going to put them face down over here, and that way I can go through one at a time and then move them off to the other side. Not enough coffee yet. Okay, put that up out of the way. And then I can move them through to the other side, hopefully keep that organized. This is the first time I have filmed my sewing machine. Hopefully this is going to work, because I don't think I'm going to have a take two. Now I've got it threaded with black. I do have some things that are other colors, and I'm trying to decide if that's going to bother me to stitch them on in black. And I guess the only way to know is to try. Now I clipped these together a few weeks ago, and I kind of wish I hadn't left it so long, because I am going to have some paper clip marks, but it's a junk journal. I'm just going to do my best to get over that. And these I cut with little flaggy ends, so my guess is I was thinking of folding them around to the other side. Let's see. Yay me, I picked one of the harder ones to be my first piece out, because I'm trying to hold that little tiny folded around end in place, which is probably pointless. You know what? I think I'll make it a larger folded around end. I'll only wrap it on the top edge. Okay, so I am starting with the most fiddly thing I possibly could, a very straight velvet ribbon. If you are not much of a sewist, you may not know that velvet's about the hardest thing to sew. Let's see, right now I've got it set on a straight stitch right down the middle of that. Do I want anything different? You know what, we're just gonna go with that. And we're off. You just stay on there. Velvet likes to walk around, and it's wanting to walk up and off the edge, so it's going to show a bit over the edge and probably not straight. So it's likely to not be my very favorite thing ever, but I'm just going with it. And I am doing the little back and forth thing because the pages will get handled, so I am locking the stitch in with the back and forth. Okay, let's see how bad it looks on the back. Oh, not bad. There's a little bobble to the stitching there, but I can live with that. All right, I think I will trim thread as I go. And I'm fine with that being done in black. The next thing up, though, I think is, yeah, white lace. Well, I kind of think I'm going to sew everything in black, because I don't want the hassle of trying to keep track of what order the paper goes back together in. And let's see, put that face up so that they can all nest. the hassle of what order it goes back together in, which would be a problem unless I change threads with every page, and I don't feel like doing that. So I've got white lace on both sides of this one. Do this. And once I get a few of these done, I'll just speed up the video and zip through, unless I see some reason to slow it down. Okay, I'm gonna want to do that, and I want to move my chair sideways a little bit. There we go. Okie dokie. Let's see, I'm on C. Let's turn it down to B. B on my machine is a medium width zigzag. And in general, I'm not trying to stitch too fast because there's not really an effective way to pin anything in place. I want to go slow enough to make sure that I'm keeping things lined up. Especially with the fact that I'm using thread that shows. And it shows on the other side of the paper too. Now there is a way to deal with it. If something showing on the other side isn't attractive, of course you can always glue other embellishments on top of that. Let's see how that came out. Well, that looks just fine. Looks rather graphic, in fact. I think that's nice. Okay, not worrying about the perfect trim there, but getting the worst of that out of the way. I'll trim these up super tidy and trim the extra length off of the trim later on, probably off camera, but just know that yes, at some point I will be trimming that. Okay, which side did I have that pinned to? Was I putting it on this side? Probably not. It doesn't really add anything there. I think it looked good here. And just because it's easier for me to work on this side, I'm going to stitch from bottom to top on this one. One doesn't do that when sewing clothing or anything. You always stitch top to bottom, because of the way fabric stretches. But this is paper, and it's not going to stretch, and so we don't care. We can break the rules. I like this because I can follow that. Keep my lace in the middle of the presser foot. It's very satisfying stitching on paper, actually. Okay. So there's that section. So I'm going to go ahead and just continue to stitch them all down. I'm satisfied with leaving the black thread in for the whole thing. This one I have this extra bit that I cut. I'm gonna try. I'm folding this right here and it's sitting a bit above. My idea being that it would make it a little bit of a tab. And then I'm gonna pull this out. Others I've stitched really close to the edge. Do I want to pull that out? No, it doesn't matter. I could leave it in. Okay, so I'm gonna fold it, make that a little tiny bit of a tab. If I can hold it there while getting it under the foot. And keep the paper in place. And I think, yeah, I'll stitch right down the center of this one, which I'm not quite on. Well, I can move the paper. I'd like to move the ribbon. Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Talking to my project again. Ah, I was not meaning to zigzag. This one I want to straight stitch. E. In the center, straight down the center line. And this is definitely one of those perfectly imperfect projects. Another one where I've left the paper clip on the velvet ribbon. I think I cut it a bit long, so I'll put that up above where it can be trimmed off. And this one, if I was sewing it on a garment, I would sew down either side. I think because it is simply junk journal, I am going to zigzag right down it. And yes, I picked West Virginia, which is on the other side of this page, because it goes in horizontal, but Utah's on the back side and it's the other way, and that's the side I'm putting trim on, but apparently I don't care. I thought about this at the time. Whatever my thinking was, I do not know. I'm going to put it on a wide zigzag. Now, is it super decorative that I've got the little lock stitch showing there? No. When it comes time to put the journal together and do a little bit more embellishing before calling it done to the extent of being a blank journal ready to go, I can put some other embellishment over that, or I can decide that I just don't mind it. But this is how I'm dealing with that paper clip mark there, all gone. Nobody will ever know. So yeah, do know that if you put paper clips onto things, they do, that right side up, paper clips will leave marks in like velvet ribbon and things like that, and on your paper. The other thing I just noticed as I was getting ready to set this aside, that started to tear. So before I bind it, if I forget this, yell at me. I'm going to need to add something right through here to the spine. This paper is just so fragile and brittle. It's likely to tear out, and we don't want that to happen. So I'm going to add some reinforcement to this piece. At least that's my plan. Don't let me forget. Yell at me through the camera. Okay, and back to lace, and yes, I'm going to let this hang off the edge. I think lace is much more effective if it does. And some of the others would be great hanging off the edge too. Part of my thinking on that is to determine whether or not the pages are the full depth of the book. And if the lace is going to stick out beyond that, or the trim, whatever the trim is, if that's going to stick out beyond the edge of the book and add some wow factor. Okay, I'm on zigzag. Do I want to be on zigzag for this? Sure. Okay, try to keep that block stitch shorter so there's less of a little booger there. One other thing I noticed I'm doing, when I'm pulling that out at the end, I am holding the paper carefully there. A lot of times with a sewing project, you just kind of like yank it out and do whatever because the fabric's got some stability to it. But because it's paper and could tear easily, when you're pulling out at the end of the run of stitching, hold on to that spot where the thread and paper meet. You would discover that for yourself, but I'll mention it now so that hopefully you won't discover it after you tear your paper. Okay, this one, if I remember right, was just cut to the length. It is. Okay. And this. Now, if you hate the look of this black thread on these things, you can change your thread to match the different things that you're putting in. With junk journaling, I tend to like that messier, more casual look. What else could you do? If you're wanting to minimize the number of times you change your thread, you may want to go through with sticky notes and number each of your pages. Sticky notes that stick well, you can paper clip them onto the page if you wanted to, something like that, so that you have your page numbers. Or perhaps if you've got your page order all figured out, you could actually go through and permanently number your pages, and then that way, you know, before you pull it all apart to do this, and then that way you can put them back in order no matter how much you scramble it up while you're stitching. Just some thoughts. Put that back on straight stitch and away I go. That was a little wobbly. It's all right. I can live with it. This one I have intentionally left a nice tab up at the top. Paper clips do not want to let go of the ribbon or lace or whatever else. Okay. And this, I think I'll set it in just a bit from the edge, just for fun. Okay, let's see if I can keep track of all of it at once. I'd intended to switch to zigzag, but I was already into it before I realized I hadn't done that. Let's see. Oh yeah, one I don't have to stitch. There's this one. That's interesting. I guess that must have been there all along. Ooh, I don't think it was. I think that's from this. Ooh, where it laid across. Interesting to note, this one has some bleed to it. Is that going to make me sad? Yes. I don't mind an awful lot. It is a junk journal. Yeah, very definitely bleed. I'm going to go ahead and stitch it in. If this was a scrapbook, if this was like all acid-free paper and, you know, that sort of thing where it could get on something of huge value, I would probably not put this in, but I've already got it there. I've got the bleed happening. It's not going to make any difference to that. I think in this case it's fine. I'm just going to let it be what it is. I'll leave this sticking off the top. Sewing it in here means that eventually there's going to be a purple stripe showing through on the other side. Okay. And I'm going to leave this tattery edge showing, kind of like that. I've got to pay attention. I've got this folded up back here for a pocket. I need to pay attention when I hit that point to make sure that I don't accidentally catch it on the edge of the machine. So I need to pay attention to that. And I've got it set long. I think I'll put it back to a wide zigzag. And we'll just go right down the middle of that trim. Oh, those are some wide stitches. Wide and long. I'm having to kind of fight it over to keep it going straight. It's just eating up the distance. Hopefully this doesn't look horrid on the other side. Worst case, if it does look horrid on the other side, I'll pause for a moment and go get a replacement piece of this particular paper, and we'll just skip the trim on this one. Yeah, this trim is quite thick, and I'm not sure what it's treated with. It's very stiff for a lace. What's going on here? Oh, that's the envelope that's just stuck on. Okay. This is so wide. Come back just a hair. to be. Shorten that up a little bit. Let's see. I'm going in relation to the bottom line on the music. I think that's the best way to try to keep it straight. So I'm going to run my presser foot along that. For as much as I sew, you think I would be better at sewing straight lines, but yeah. Oh, interesting. I've done it again. Right in about the same point on the line. I've missed a stitch. I don't know why it's doing that. It's not the machine. It's me kind of like when I pull it, move it, try to keep it on track. Not noticed it doing that before. I'm fighting it. It doesn't appreciate it. Okay, I am going to do the rest of these off camera, and then we'll reconvene for putting the spine together. Okay, I'm just about done here, and I realized this one, I was going to sort of gather it in as I go. Now, this is not, I'm not going to use a gathering stitch on the machine because I don't want to gather the paper, I just want to gather the lace. So this is not going to be like the proper way to gather lace. I don't even know why I decided to do this because there are other laces I have that are already gathered, but for some reason I thought this would be a good idea. So I'm just going to kind of pinch pleat this as I go along, and it's going to be a very messy kind of gather, not a neat and tidy one. That might be why I thought it would be a good idea, just because it's a little different. So let me get the thread started first, and then back it up once, and then switch it. I have it off to the side a little bit. We'll switch it back to the center so I don't have to think about where my needle's coming in at least. And I'm just going to be shoving the lace up into the presser foot as I go. Some laces you have to watch that they don't get tangled onto parts of the presser foot. Switching to a different presser foot could be a good idea for this, but we're on the last piece and I don't want to do that. So we're just going to do the messy method and hope for the best. And of course, at the same time, trying to hold my paper straight. It's not really fully wanting to cooperate, but who knows what this will look like on the other side. I may be gluing a paper strip to the other side to hide some pretty wonky stitching. We shall see. Let go. There we go. Sometimes you have to talk to your sewing machine. Okay, that was actually, I think, worth doing because that makes a fun, really fluffy little ruffle. I am going to flip back through real quick. Move the machine just a bit. Oh, and I just unplugged the machine because I've got it anchored in there so it won't move. Okay, plug the machine back in. Okay, let's do a quick flip through and see if there's anything else I want to stitch. Do I want to stitch some top edges, bottom edges? Like this piece is really plain. Let's take a moment here. Slide this aside. And I don't think I'll worry about what's going on this side, just this one. And I think what I will do, leave that on a straight stitch and fairly long. And I'm going to go straight down the, come on, machine. Straight down the seam side of the paper. And then when I get to the bottom, I'm just going to curve it around. And then I'm going to be a little bit playful. Probably better with a slightly shorter stitch. You kind of got to watch it coming through underneath here. All right, just for fun. So sometimes stitches hold things together and sometimes they're just decorative. Some people do this kind of thing in all their junk journals. I don't know that I would do it in all of mine, but since this is a sewing journal, a few pages with some stitches seems a good idea. Okay, so there's that. Okay, coming to the back side. I've noticed that the second side of my signature is sometimes pretty bland. So I've got a blank, but it's got nice stuff here. You know, looking at this way, even though this is wonky, I think I'll do the same thing down this side. Hopefully I'm pulling this back into frame at the right spot. Let's see, turn it a little bit. And I've got it on a long stitch, which is what the other side was stitched with. We'll go, I probably should have kept it fairly straight, but maybe if I make this intentionally a little wobbly, it'll make the other side look intentional. I don't know. Probably not. Whatever. I think it looks fine. I think this side looks intentional. Whether that makes the other side look intentional, I don't know. Okay. So putting that back in, putting this back here. Okay, I kind of like that. That way when it's open to this spread, you've got that. Okay. I will trim up some edges and move back over to my main work table. And we'll see about putting this puppy together. Now I've got everything stitched. I've got all the little ends trimmed. And I've gathered what I need for putting the journal together. So I've got my pages, I've got my cover that we did way back when. I've got a tapestry needle, and I of course have a few in there, but I've picked out one that the head is not huge on. So a tapestry needle. I'm going to use black embroidery floss. I'll show you in a minute why I chose that. You can use bookbinding thread. You could use baker's twine. Whatever looks good. It's a junk journal. We're not doing high-end bookbinding here. You're going to want, I've got my thread snipping scissors and my paper scissors here to the side just in case I decide I need them, but I don't think I will. I've got some ribbon. Now this could be fabric instead of ribbon. I just happened to come across this Christmas, this is actually, it's a velvet ribbon, but it's that Christmas gift wrap, tie giant bows around your wreaths kind of ribbon. And I liked the dark green. It plays well with the turquoise color that shows up throughout the book. I need to take a piece of Scotch tape, which happens to be handy because, yeah, I haven't put away all the gift wrapping stuff. Okay, so if you want to get the fuzzies off and you didn't know it, just take a piece of Scotch tape and defuzz things a bit. Okay, so I'm going to use a snippet off of this for covering the spine. You don't absolutely have to cover the spine. I like to. I think it adds some strength. It also will cover the stitching, which you'll see in a minute. And I've got some Fabri-Tac glue for sticking that ribbon on. Now this is what you'll typically see Fabri-Tac in, is this small bottle, or you can get a very large bottle. I find, and you'll have heard me say this before if you've watched other videos of mine, I really prefer to use it out of the small tubes. It's easier to get out and direct it exactly where you want it because your control is all right there with the glue. It's all just there. The other thing, I use a fair bit of Fabri-Tac, but I never use it up before it turns really thick and boogery in the bottle, and I end up throwing away a bunch of it anyway. So if you can't find these wherever you buy Fabri-Tac locally, look for Fabri-Tac minis online and you will find places that sell them. That's just a personal preference, might be helpful for you to know. You are going to need a pokey tool, and this is going to be thick enough. This may tax the limits of my very cheap pokey tool. We will find out. Emergency backup plan would be the X-Acto knife. Emergency backup X-Acto knife. And probably if I went and got out the beautiful set of X-Acto knives that I inherited from my grandparents, I probably have a small awl in there, but that's stashed in a cupboard over there. Never thought to look in there till just now, but for today this will do. If we can't get this to go through, because this plastic is pretty wimpy and I have broken these before. Again, this was the dollar store version. You can get better quality ones at your art supply store. But if that doesn't work, X-Acto will be our backup. And I've got a ruler and a pen. Sometimes I use this, sometimes I don't. We'll see what I decide on this. So, to get started, we want to line up our pages. I'm going to start with just lining them up so they're all flush at the bottom. But that may not be how I actually want them, because when you are stitching your pages in, we're going to do a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. And we're going to have a stitch here, a stitch down here, and a stitch in the middle. And I want most of the pages to catch in all 3. And there's a couple of narrower pages. We'll get to those. Those, it's okay with me that they don't catch all three, but they must catch at least two, and not only in the center one, but either top or bottom. So we're just going to go through real quick and make sure we like the way the pages are lined up. I'm going to pull that one down. This is our tallest page. Okay. It's a bit hard to get them to slide up and down now that they have all of their trims on their edges. So most of these I am centering. You could choose to do something different. And most of them are the same height. It's just a few of these that really do have to be lined up in the center. Get in there. And especially like this one that has a pocket. Don't want to scooch in too much, but come in just a little bit. Okay, this one that has a pocket, I do want to be absolutely sure that all three of those hit, because you've got the weight of extra things being tucked in there. And truthfully, once you've added all the extras and bells and whistles and things, you're going to want to be sure that all of them are as sturdy as can be. Now this is the one that's only going to catch two. And I've got to decide if I want it up high or down low. What's showing on the other side? Oh, on this side, because of what's showing on this side, my choice then, I think down low, rather than going a little bit high and like, I guess it could be a surprise back there, but I kind of like the idea of that showing. So I'm going to do the down low so it catches in the center and the bottom one. That right there is the biggest reason we go through and make sure we like the way the pages are lined up. And you're supposed to be yelling through the camera at me pretty soon here. Where was the one piece of paper? There was one piece that wanted to rip. Which one was that? It wasn't that one, because it was on, oh, it was the map. Okay, all these are fine. When I was doing the stitching, I heard the map start to tear, and it's right there. And I didn't end up putting it in the center like I had at one point thought I would. Okay, I've got this bit of a tear down here. I had better take care of that real quick. So we've got that. I've got this paper that was used somewhere in here. I don't think I want this super wide. But I do want it wide enough to fold easily. So let's go a generous inch. My poor paper cutter is so old that these are starting to bow apart. Doesn't cut super straight. One of these days I will replace it. Okay. And I'll just tear. I suppose that didn't make much sense to just tear because I should have been all the way up to the edge. Okay, let's use the other piece that I was discarding. Let's pull that back. And we will fold it where I want to cut it. Because I do need it to go all the way out to the edge, and I could be extra fancy and even wrap around, but I don't want to make it too stiff. Did I cut that straight? Not really, but Here's to having my emergency, just in case I need them, paper cutting scissors handy, so that I didn't just grab, because you know, if they hadn't been, I would have grabbed these, and these are not just my sewing scissors, these are my felt cutting scissors. And if you do anything with felt, or have done, and you think it's really impossible to cut, the only thing about cutting felt is super sharp scissors, and then it just cuts like a dream. So, while I will use them to snip threads, I don't use them for anything else, and especially not paper. Okay, and I'm going to fold that both ways just so that it's comfortable being flexible, but this is nice, fresh, new, modern paper that's got some strength to it. And so, I pull in some paper gluing glue. Leave out of the way. Okay, generous bit of glue for that. Reach up here. Okay, and there's all kinds of extra glue on there. We'll just get that off to the side and out of the way. Now, I'm going to put this on the Utah side of things rather than the Virginia side of things. And I've got a fold in here. Keep my head out from in front of the camera. Ah! I'm trying to not get it stuck to my paper before I'm ready for it. I'm sticking it to my fingers. Pretty much everything else. Kind of get it to slide upwards just a bit. What would have helped is if I had drawn the line on here that I folded, because then I could have seen it very clearly right here, and lining up would have been a little bit easier. And it never would have shown because it would have then been glued to the inside. Okay, there's that. Okay, I'm just going to open it and press it down. Yeah, that was continuing to rip. It's already ripped up to there. Okay, that is glued down, and now it won't be coming apart on us. All right, pop that in. Back into there, back into there. Okay. We'll do my best to keep this right on screen. Now, one other thing, with a pokey tool, you will want something a little bit cushioned to poke into. So I've got that. Let me double check that that one piece didn't wiggle around while I was doing other things. It's happily down there where it belongs. Okay, so I need to poke 3 holes, and I could measure or I could skip the measuring just in case it's easier to have measured it. Okay, I'm lining up my ruler with the very lowest bit there, and you can probably get by without doing this, but we are making one very thick signature, and this may make it easier because we may need to pull it apart and punch part at a time. And while you can stack things up and line up the holes and punch that way, it may turn out to be easier to not have to fuss with that. So I've got my 4.5 at 1, at 4.5, and then up here at 8. Do I feel confident that everybody is in at 1? Yes, yes. Okay, up here at the top, do I feel confident everybody's in at 8? Yes, but I think I'll go down to 7.5. There are a few that are short-ish. I think I'll be safer doing that. Okay. So I'm going to poke through. And I'm through. I am into that fabric. Okay. Now one thing I like to do before I poke the next hole, and this is not to stitch it, this is just to hold it in place. I like to put that through, put a needle through to hold that in place so that these won't slip. If you're working with a smaller stack of papers, and most signatures, if you're doing a multiple signature book, very likely you're going to work with a smaller stack of papers. Now, I am kind of holding this folded and poking through because I have a better shot of coming all the way through on the fold every time. If I go straight up and down, sometimes it wiggles and you end up not actually on the fold where you're poking through. And this is actually poking through easier than I expected it to. I've known them to be real stinkers in the past. Okay, that one's poked through, and the top one. A 3-hole pamphlet stitch is absolutely the most common, easiest, unless you're going to just take a hole punch and make 2 holes. Oh, I am glad I came down to that 7.5, because this one would not have caught at the 8. Would have been okay, it would have had 2. It would have been stitched in bottom and center, but there we go. Okay, and in the meantime I wiggled this up, so hopefully that was all fine up there. Okay, different people do this different ways. I prefer, I'm going to poke this back in at the bottom, get them all lined up again. Oh, I would have preferred that hadn't come apart. Oh, we'll hope we're all lined up. Okay, I prefer to come in from the back side, and I'm about to have some difficulties here, so bear with me. I prefer to come in from the back side and through. Yep, that popped out right when I really did not want it to. Okay, we're fine there. Because I like to tie mine on the outside of my book, and we're not going to bind that quite yet. Put that through to hold it in place. We'll set that aside because we need to do this. We've got to get the spine punched. And the spine is just a little bit taller than the book, so I'm going to center my 0 and my 9 in between and then do my marks. So I was at 1, I was at 4.5, and I don't want to make these too big because they will show, and I was at 7.5. Okay. And then I'm just eyeballing in between the folds. Poking through. My pokey tool's behaving very nicely today. Okay. Do not put your fingers directly behind that. I'm just going to make that hole a little bit bigger. All right. Okay, so a needle pulling thread. Sorry, had to. This puppy is not wanting to line up anymore. We'll go down to there, there, there. And if you cannot get your pokey tool through all the layers, You figure out how many you can do, poke it through those, start again and poke it through the next batch. Okay, and again, I'm just putting that through just to kind of hold things in place while I'm getting this ready to go. Now, a lot of folks who do this start on the inside and do everything, and then they tie it on the inside, and your knot or bow always shows. I don't care for that. I like that part to be hidden. Just a personal preference. So I start from the outside. Whichever side you start from is the side that your knot is going to be on a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. So I'm coming from the outside. It's going to be a little bit trickier getting back up through everything. If I can get it started. And yes, could I have done a binder clip to hold things in the meantime? I could have. I find the pokey tool does a little bit better, but I may regret that this time around. I'm not coming through as easy as I normally would. Okay, and again, this is where you can look to the inside and start stringing them on like little beads. Okay, we're through up to, whoop, yeah, we're through up to there, but it's coming through in the wrong place. Oh, sometimes it's tedious. There's that. Just like to wiggle around. Some people do put a binder clip on the pages. I haven't had great luck with that. I usually end up with something that isn't caught in the binder clip slipping around just about the time I'm feeling real confident. So if it works for you, go for it. It's worth giving it a try. If you haven't tried it before, you can do that. Since that's neatly held down there, I'm going to go upwards first. So you come up through the middle, down through an end, through the spine. Okay, it's a little bit less fiddly when I'm not trying to do it on camera, but it's fiddly. It just is. And my string, I may not have mentioned this, my string is 3 times the height of the book. It's a bit more than you need technically, but I like to have enough to be able to tie off without struggling. Okay, so down here to this last one, which I have held in place all this time, so, and just let go. Oops. Okay, so we're going to go all the way down to the bottom end and through. And with any luck, no, there's no luck here. Get out to the way cover. Trying to see things. Quite a few of them. There was a bit of luck in there. And again, if you do multiple signatures, you don't have as many sheets of paper in any one of them. There we go. Whew! All right. And to come through. And back out the center hole where you originally came in. Should fairly easily just follow right back through. It's already punched. There it is. Back up there. Now I am working with 6-strand embroidery floss. I may have just split the floss in there. It shouldn't matter. Here's what I find does matter, and I've noticed that
none of the videos I've seen of other people doing this have explained it. First of all, you do want to pull tight, so I am pulling here and here. I'm pulling up through this to make sure that long back stitch is nice and snug. I'm not pulling it back out of here because I don't want to pull it back out and have to rethread the needle and get back through those holes. I've got that back stitch pulled nice and taut. Now here's the thing, one thread is on one side of that, one thread's on the other side of that. That way, if you tie the knot, if you don't tie around this, there's a chance your knot's going to pull right back through into the center. And then I'm pulling this nice and tight. And then I will give it a good square knot, and I'm going to do one more. Now, if you're tying this with this to the inside and showing, you might want to tie that into a bow. If you're not going to cover your spine, you might want to tie it into a bow. You may want to leave these long to put beads or dangles or something on. In my case, I'm going to be covering this, so I'm just going to clip them fairly short. I think I'll go a little bit shorter so they can't accidentally come around the sides, because I do know I've knotted it 3 times. It's not going to come loose. So before we cover our spine, we now have a bound book. That's all there was to it. On the inside, you have this that shows. And that's the only place it shows. So the easy bit comes now. Oh God, famous last words. Probably something will go wrong and it won't be so easy. Normally this is the easy bit. Let's see, first I'm going to trim my end just straight across. And I want to see, this is being that sort of plasticky ribbon meant for like your wreaths outdoors, it's not going to fray. If I had ribbon that was going to fray, what I would do, you can use Fray Check, which is for sewing, if you're not familiar with that. That was not a very straight cut. I'm just lining it up here using my cutting mat as a nice square. Let's mark that and cut it a little straighter. So if you are using ribbon that would fray or fabric that might fray top and bottom, if it's very thin, you can fold a hem into it. Because I'm working with velvet, and I don't need to on this, I don't really want to fold a hem into this. So the next thing you can do, you can use Fray Check. Fray Check is really runny though, and it's basically, I think, the same kind of thing as Fabri-Tac is, but thinned down. So what I would do is take a bit of Fabri-Tac and run it across the end. And I don't need it on this, but I'll go ahead and demo anyway. And am I open and flowing, or do I still need to poke a pin in? Hang on. I poked through the foil, but I'm not sure this tip is open. It is open. Did my poking through the foil not work? It did. Okay. Not sure what that was about. Oh, there it comes. Honestly, this one is feeling like they've sold me an old one that's a bit dried. Okay. I would do just a very thin bead and then just work it in. And in this case, oh, it's going to ball right up on this. Okay, interesting to note, this is a plastic backed thing, and this Fabri-Tac seems to think instead of spreading on it, it's going to ball up. Okay, I am using a random thing that this is not going to stick well to. I'm going to switch to a different glue. 99% of what you would be gluing on here is going to like Fabri-Tac. This has a plastic backing to it, and the Fabri-Tac just pretty much beads up off of it. So I'm going to switch to Art Glitter Glue. And I think I will use that the same way as Fabri-Tac. So let's see about this. Art Glitter Glue. Okay, Art Glitter Glue, do not be misled by the name. It's for gluing glitter on. It does not have glitter in it. And I'm going to test it off to the side. Yep, okay, I just wanted to make sure it was flowing. This one's pretty runny. So I've got that. So I was talking about Fabri-Tac on the ends. And we're all done talking about that. So let me get this cut to the right length, which is just past. I'm going to cut this to exactly the length. Again, if I was hemming it, I would cut that slightly different. And because I'm now really aware that this is plastic, I think I won't cut it with my other scissors, although they cut, polyester fabric all the time, so not sure what the difference would be. Okay, there's that. I am going to go ahead. Art Glitter Glue is designed to stick glitter and other non-porous man-made materials. So that's why I feel pretty good about using it on this. I want to use enough to spread it out. I want to be careful that I don't get so much that it would soak through. If I was doing Fabri-Tac, I might do a test. If I was using a thinner ribbon or fabric, I might do a test on a scrap piece off to the side and see how much glue I can get away with before I end up with it soaking through. Because having glue soak through on pretty much the last, oops, take the cap back off, that helps. On pretty much the last step of a project, that's just sad. Okay, I'm adding just a little extra of this. This stuff can be tricky. It's runny. It's easy to get too much, but I don't want to have too little because I do want this to really stick. And I'm going to line up my front first. And I just want this to wrap around the front. I don't want it to come too far. I'm going to have to cover up some of that P, but I want to leave most of the graphics showing. And that's the only reason. Otherwise, I would have overlapped further. Across the back, I'm going to get that really pressed on there. And across the back. Try to keep my gluey, doggone it, fingers off of there. Okay, be sure and wipe the glue off your fingers before you do that. It's not particularly water soluble, so I don't think the quick bit of spit on my dry rag did me a doggone bit of good. But now we'll go with it. Okay. If you're doing this with Fabri-Tac, very likely you're going to have to hold this just a moment longer. And sometimes I find it helpful. The Art Glitter Glue has caught right away. But sometimes I find it helpful to press it down with a ruler, just so you have a long, flat edge pushing down on it. Art Glitter Glue has caught on right away. Whoops, well, maybe not so much. Fabri-Tac will take a moment longer. I'm going to let that sit and dry, and then I'll go back and I will check those edges to make sure they're stuck down. Now, quite often when I've done a fabric spine, I will choose, and I don't have anything matching right handy, but I will choose a secondary trim. In this case, I'm not going to actually stick this on, but quite often it looks nice to do a secondary trim. And that secondary trim, I might even wrap to the inside. So it's a thought. I don't think I'm going to do it on this. If I do decide to do it on this, we'll do that on another video. At this point, we have the basic book done. It's there, it's done. I do still have this person's name, and I will be looking for some bit of ephemera or, you know, a label, a something to go across this. I haven't come across anything I like yet, so I will be looking for that. I'll also be looking for some things. It's at the bare basics done, but I do like to include a few bells and whistles in an art journal before I sell it. So I will be planning out some little page enhancements, mostly pocket type things. So some different page enhancements to go on some of these. I want to leave a great deal of the fun up to the person who receives this journal in the end. But it needs to have a little bit more than just this. I want to put some of that in to make it more exciting, especially if this ends up in the hands of somebody who's never done a junk journal before. I want them to have some ideas of the possibilities. So there we go. Go, have fun, make. If you're not making a junk journal today, I hope you're making something. Make some magic at any rate.